Welcome to the Secret Art of Business. And today I'm very honored to have Christie Angel with me today. Christie, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Catherine, for having me. I am really looking forward to this conversation.
Now, you are presently in a job that is BroadView Talent Partners. And this comes after a long line of a lot of public service and, working for the city and things like that. But tell us what you're doing now at BroadView.
So, BroadView Talent Partners, I like to think of it as the culmination of kind of all the things I've done in my career. I am the managing partner of an executive search firm, and I manage kind of what we call the Midwest office here in Columbus. And we do executive search. For the most part, we work with nonprofit organizations to identify their next leader. Usually, the executive director, the CEO, but sometimes in the C-suite office as well, CFO, COO, chief development, chief advancement officers, those kinds of positions. And I call it the culmination of everything because, throughout my career, I've transitioned people, into roles. I helped to transition, mayors into their offices. I led transition teams. I hired people. I led a nonprofit myself, leading YWCA Columbus. And I have always, throughout my career, especially as I got, more seasoned, would talk to people about how to identify their next, how to prepare for their next. I've mentored people. I've been mentored. I've had coaches. And I feel like this role is kind of the natural progression of my career and kind of brings everything together. And obviously I've served, in a number of boards and things like that. So I understand nonprofit board governance and the role of the nonprofit board in choosing the next leader and preparing for the next leader. But one of the things that people probably don't know about me, and this comes from more of my consultant career when I did government relations, is I love the business development. I'm a relational person by nature, but I love kind of going after the business, talking to people about the business. Not so much writing the proposals. There are other people who probably do that better than I, but the get, right, to just go after that business. And then there's nothing like, being selected, right, to help an organization find its next leader or even, do some other kind of organizational development work. So that part is, I really enjoy it. And thanks to my business partner who was conducting some other searches in the area and actually led the search for my replacement at YWCA Columbus. He saw something in me. And when I was deciding kind of what I was going to do next after leaving the Y, after, a great time there and leading through, the pandemic, he asked me to join the firm. And I was like, okay, I don't do search. But then he was like, no, wait a minute, and kind of helped me see my career and see that this would be, a natural. And then, being able to have some equity in the business and, ownership and decision making was kind of the next thing for me. And so I love it. And I have a great partner and a great team. And I remember my husband, was really like, you could do this. I see you in this role. And that was also very helpful to me as well as I was making the decision. So it's been 1 year now and the firm is growing, and we added some new associates to our team in January, and we continue to grow. And I'm just having a great time. I'm working in cities that I haven't worked in before, doing some work in Michigan and Iowa and Wisconsin. And so really getting to know other cities as well and their nonprofits. And then I do some work for YWCA USA. And that allows me to stay connected to the organization and the mission of that organization as well.
Yeah. And it's funny, as a person that has set up or built a staffing company and not having a background in staffing, I totally understand that it's really more about who you know than it is about search. You know, people think it's like some sort of thing, but it's just a well-connected person finding the great person for a job. It's like, oh my God, I know who is perfect for this. And,
That's
or you might
right.
meet somebody and read their resume and talk with them and be like, oh my God, you're going to be perfect for this. So, I
That's
mean,
right.
all it is.
And referral, Catherine. I mean, I'm
Yes,
sure you know
yes,
this, right? It's like, okay, I might think, maybe I think Catherine's right for this role, but then Catherine will say to me, I'm not really interested right now, but
yeah,
I know two people who would be great for this. And then
right,
you get the referrals. And then, referrals, ultimately candidate placements, right, become advertisement for more business too, right? People are like,
absolutely.
oh, you place that
Yep,
person, or that
right,
person gets in a role, and then they say, well, now I need you to help me fill out my team or complete my team or help me think through, my organizational structure and things like that. And it just kind of goes on and on and on. And there's some great search firms, executive search firms in the market here in Columbus.
hmm,
And, I have been kind of on the other end of, the work they've recruited me for roles and so forth. And they're all, collegial, and, we have great conversation about the plethora of work in the Columbus region right now, I think because of all of our growth.
right.
Um, and we are seeing no surprises here, and this will be no surprise to our listening audience. You know, baby boomers in particular, right, are retiring and leaving the workforce at a bit of a record rate. Some of them
Hmm,
maybe stayed a little bit longer through the pandemic to keep stability in organizations and so forth. And we see this a lot in nonprofit leadership, but also we're not going to return to a time where, for the most part, people stay in roles beyond like 10 years, right? I
right.
mean,
Yeah.
the
5
Xers and
maybe.
certainly the millennials, five to
Yeah,
seven.
yeah.
I always say 7 years, that's a gift.
Right.
And, you know, because of that, you see a lot of turnover and people, looking for their next, and then organizations looking for their next. But also, nonprofit boards are getting more skilled and adept at going through succession planning and making sure that they identify, if not
Right.
the successor to the role, at least the profile and the type of successor that should lead, should lead the organization when their long term, or when their leader exits. And so all of those things are helping us from a business nature. And then also, I'm running into more and more coaches. We always hear about outplacement services when,
Hmm, hmm.
someone perhaps exits, an organization and it wasn't planned, or it
Right.
is planned, but they need outplacement.
Yep.
We're starting to see outplacement coaching for those retiring, because
Oh
people,
yeah.
when they retire, they don't want to just sit at home and do
Hmm.
nothing.
Exactly.
So
And
we're
I
seeing
think that is going to probably be the next huge business too, because they're like, well, maybe I should just go back to work. It's like, well, maybe not. What else could you possibly do?
that's right.
Because they get really lost with I have to be working. And it's like, well, there's other ways to contribute to society that doesn't necessarily mean a job. It could be
A job.
based more on your passion versus anything else. And speaking of passion, because you talked about business, your education is actually in business administration, which I thought was kind of interesting that you said that, and now you've almost come full circle with all that experience. Like you said, this is kind of a little pathway that you have created by starting out in business and then almost immediately getting into government.
Hmm.
How did you make that first jump into a government role?
For me, it was so my undergrad degree was actually in communications, and I was doing a lot of writing in those days and some media relations. But I loved the work of local government. And as I was finishing school, so I went to school, took a break, and went back, and I was working. I was actually working for the city of Columbus. And in my mind, it was like, I'm just doing this so that I can get the tuition reimbursement, and then I finished school. Um, but I loved, just the work of really the legislative body and city council in particular. I was drawn to that work. And so I was working for one of the departments in the city, but I had a lot of interaction with city council. And I wanted to be a council aide. I wanted to be kind of where the action was at the time.
Hmm.
That was like center of the universe in terms of where the, convening kind of the public with, the public, the people with the public sector leaders. And a position opened up, and I had probably was probably 6 months away after graduation. And I mean, Catherine, I still remember planning the suit I wore, I still have the thank you notes that I wrote, because I wrote the people that I work for, they returned them to me. They were like, these thank you notes were so nice. And they returned them to me. They're like, you might want to keep this. I had memoirs. I had like a little portfolio with all my writing and all these things in there. And I wanted to, just demonstrate. And I was like, this is my job. Like, I could see myself in this role. And I was so excited. It was a policy role. It wasn't a council aide role. It was a policy role, and it was a newly created policy position. They were adding a fifth member, I think, to the team in the what we call then the Legislative Research Office. And Michael Coleman was a new council member. And I got paired with him as kind of the policy person that would work more closely with him, because he was new and I was new. And Michael Coleman was an idea factory and a visionary. Absolutely. And I got to work on some things that were amazing, right? And I remember I would always think to myself, I think back now, I'm like, oh my gosh, he would give me so much rope. Thank goodness I didn't hang myself. But he just, because he was like at the law firm, he was a partner in a law firm and working part-time. And so he was like, well, you go do it. Okay. And
opportunity for you.
Opportunity. And I grew. And then I remember being there for about, it must have been 6-7 months. And our media relations person at the time moved on, and the position was vacant. And they asked me to fill in for the media relations person and still do the policy work. And I was like, okay. Now, these days people would be like, well, that's 2 jobs and you need to. I was like in heaven, because now I'm like doing the media work. And so I'm working with all the council members. I'm writing talking points. I'm writing press releases. I am working with every media outlet, from print to electronic, media to radio. And I did the work for 6 or 7 months. I got to know all these media people, still friends with most of them to this day, that are the ones that are still here. And then I went back into the policy role, and then I was promoted. I mean, it just kind of went on and on and on from there. And again, then Michael became council president, and I became his de facto chief of staff. He's always like, you were my chief of staff. I'm like, well, no, that's not what we called it then. I was just a senior aide. But okay, let's go with the chief of staff. And, from then we went to the mayor's office, and it's still I still tell people, like, that time in council is like one of my favorite all-time jobs. I mean, hands down, the growth that I had, the people that I met, I have lifelong relationships, and the offshoots for my career and where it went come from that position.
That term, that Michael Coleman term, with you definitely at his side, I believe was a big, catalyst for the momentum that Columbus has had. I mean, it was pretty much sitting still for a while, and it took a big push by the two of you to get that flywheel going, and Columbus has been growing ever since. So with that, thank you for that, because I live here. Absolutely. Having more to do and growing, and property values are up and things like that. So for me personally, it's awesome. But for anybody wanting to live here too, it is a great place. And I think Forbes just recently had an article on how Columbus is one of these hidden diamonds of places to live. And again, a lot of it started with just the movement that you two created. The reason I fumbled on the name of your business is because I had this up first to talk about, and I'm going to say it anyway. So I'm going to go back to, because in your LinkedIn, it says, a leader by example, Christie Angel has spent 3 decades engaging her community, business relationships, and advocating for the vulnerable, so all people can experience peace, justice, freedom, and dignity. That is such a powerful message, and it is so you. And I had to get that out there because, I think when you're talking about what you did, it's just like, well, we just, I wrote some things. Now, this is what you did. This is really what you did. You say that, that's your mission, but I think that's some great work that you've done, to be perfectly honest.
Thank you so much for saying that. You forget about those things that you did when, like, I remember fighting for this one community when I was working for Coleman, and you know there was Mayor Lasheka was mayor, and his team thought that this was a great place to put. It was like a garage of some sorts where all the salt trucks and all the
Oh,
vehicles would go to be repaired. And it
mhm.
was down the street. It was in a neighborhood, and it was in a part of Linden at the time. And they were like, "Well, it's close to 71, and it's this and it's that." And it was like, "But you can't do. You're going to destroy a neighborhood."
Right.
And
Who's want to live here?
yeah, and I remember there was a little bit of some kind of dust up around, neighbors that okayed it and neighbors that didn't want it, and maybe were a little late to the public discourse around it. And so some council members, that the council members had kind of given it the green light. And I remember that meeting where I asked them to wait. And there's a period of time when the legislation, you can hold legislation, not sign it, and it can be revisited. And I remember Coleman looked at me and he said, "You've got 30 days." And I said, "I'll be back." And
Yeah.
I assembled this, kind of action plan, and we went out in the community and we talked to people. And we went door to door so that we could get everyone's voice could be heard, or as
Mhm.
more people, so that we can, truly understand, was this wanted or not wanted, and try to evaluate the harm, possible harm. Those probably weren't the words we used, but I remember coming back to the council and saying, "We cannot do this to this neighborhood." And I made my case with facts and data, and they reversed their decision. And I remember Mayor Lasheka was not a happy man, and we're friends to this day. He was a neighbor, and we're friends. And he told me, he was like, "I gained a whole new respect for you,
Oh,
in
nice.
terms of what you did." And that neighborhood, Catherine, is thriving now. That neighborhood got itself. That was the catalyst for those neighbors to come together and form a civic association. They have housing where the garage would have gone. There's housing. Um, you know, it just really gave them the shot in the arm that they needed to come together and fight for their neighborhood. And so that neighborhood is thriving. The garage is down, I don't
Out
know, almost near
east
Grove Point.
somewhere.
Way, yeah, but where it should be,
Mhm.
quite frankly. It took a while for it to get there, and they had to find new land and all of that. But I just think about the disruption that would have, could have occurred by putting that industrial facility kind of in the heart of, I mean, and Linden, is still kind of trying to make its comeback, so to speak, but that
Right.
would have just been a destroyer. And it was a lesson to me. And, you know, just because one may think, "Oh, these people," and I'm not saying that the Lasheka administration didn't value the people or the property that they owned there, but
I'm just
it
mentioning, like,
wasn't.
it made sense. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
that's close to 71. So, well, perfect.
And there weren't a plethora of homes there. It was like two streets, and so I think they felt in this big piece of property, and I think they felt like it's not going to be that disruptive. But also, they had no proximity to the people.
Mhm.
And what I endeavored to build, again, I'm using these words now. These probably weren't the words I had back. This would have been 1999. Um, we got proximate to the people and to the situation, and we realized, and there was a lot of emotion, but we even took the emotion out of it, that this was not what you do to neighborhoods. And that is how Columbus, that's Columbus, right? And this
Mhm.
notion of Columbus Way and so forth. And so that was an early kind of, piece of that. But it is one of those things that I, am proudest of. And whenever I run into someone from that neighborhood, they always remember.
Oh,
They're like, it was called Project 25. That was the name of the initiative that the Lasheka administration had. And they were like, "You're the Project 25 lady." I'm like, "Yes, I am." That is me. I'm the Project 25 lady.
Forever known.
Forever known. I'll take it.
That's awesome. Now, you also have done a lot of board work and specifically with which is how we kind of got to know each other better, is with the Greater
Yes.
Columbus Arts Council. So you definitely have a love for the arts. Let's talk about, how did that start for you?
Well, again, it's going to come back to city council in that role, because in that role, one of the things that they handed me, as you know, a junior policy advisor, was the Greater Columbus Arts Council contract. And they wanted me to do a little bit of forensic work around some spending and so forth. And then I became the person that helped negotiate the contracts every year. Those contracts, you remember, you were on the board, percentage of the bed tax and all of that. So I became intimately knowledgeable and involved around the bed tax, Experience Columbus, and the Arts Council. I also got to know the former Arts Council leader, Ray Hanley. Ray he became my arts mentor. And so I'm this young person getting to know Ray Hanley, who was such a personality. And Ray introduced me to all types of art forms. He was always, you should come to this, concert or this ballet or this, get involved in this young professionals group. He was always pushing me to do things. He was always telling me what I, wasn't doing well, as also, and, complaining and what have you about his contract. But we became great friends, and I have friends. I remember when I met my husband and I took him to something at Ray Hanley's house. I invited him to join me, and he said to me, you have friends that are every age from like 80 to like 20. And I was like, I know.
Isn't it great?
I was like, it's great, right? And Ray, I mean, just phenomenal. Taught me a lot about cultural tourism and all of these things. And so that became my love, really, for the Arts Council in particular, which then allowed me to just really explore other art forms that I was not as familiar with, and become a bigger patron of the arts, and to also, really get into kind of my own, some collecting of my own and so forth. And, and then I've grown, from there. You go to Europe, you go to places and you see fabulous, the history museums and all of that.
Right.
And so, it still comes back to that role. The arts for me it's a great outlet and a source of kind of understanding kind of the creativity and the beauty of, whether it's, spoken word, dance, music, painting, any art form, and allows me to kind of recharge.
Yeah. Same for me. Although I do make some of it myself, but I know my own limits, and I love going to see other people's work. That is just, blows my mind too. And it's just like, I don't even know how this happened, and I'm looking at it, which is so cool.
How do they do it?
Exactly.
I have a painting behind me.
I have been admiring that the whole time.
And this is a Lance Johnson painting. So Lance is a famous kind of, he infuses a little bit of graffiti art in his work. He has a number of murals around town and does art kind of in the moment. And this was done at a YWCA event called Activists and Agitators. He painted as the event went on. And this is his kind of like what he pulled out of the event. And the team, unbeknownst to me, gave it to me as my parting gift.
That is perfect. That's a perfect gift.
Yeah.
I'm going to dial back the conversation even further, because I am just dying to know what Christie Angel did when she was a child. What did you do that was fun and creative? How sort of play did you have?
Wow, fun and creative. Well, I was into cheer and dance. That was my creative outlet. And I was on drill team in high school, and I was a squad leader, and so I was part of the band, and that was kind of my thing. I was never really like a painter or draw. Like that wasn't my creative. My mother tells stories. I don't remember this because I'm too young. I was too young, but that I was the director of many plays with my cousins.
Perfect.
And she was like, when you were young, all my aunt had 4 children, my uncle had 2, and then there were 2 in our family. And we would all be at my grandparents' house, and we would go over there for weekends sometimes. And our parents would still young, and they would go out, and we would stay with my grandparents. And my grandmother and my mother said that I would come in and go, "The kids are here. Let's go upstairs and have a play." And she was like, I was the smallest, still am. I'm the shortest one. And all my cousins, everybody's tall, and I was directing them. And I would tell them, like, we would play with my grandmother's clothes and old shoes and things from the like 30s and 40s. And I would say, "You wear this and you do this and you're the monster and you're the teacher." And I would give people roles and I would tell them what to do. And so my cousins, who are older than I am, they're like, "Oh yeah, you were the boss of us. We would play school. I was always the principal or the teacher. They were the students." And so that was who I was, even as a young,
I was going to say, and that just continued on your adult life.
It did. It did. It just continued on. My little brother, he's 7 years younger than I am. And when I used to watch him, Big Valley, which people probably don't remember Big Valley, but it was this show, and it was like a Western kind of show.
Yeah.
We would play Big Valley, and I was Barbara Stanwyck. I was like the matriarch of the family, and he was Heath. This guy, and we would run around, the house and everything. I'll never forget this. And my little brother, so my mother was always like, "Stop doing that," because we had hardwood floors, like slip and fall. We had these throw rugs, and my little brother, I was chasing him, and I decided this was the one time I wasn't the matriarch. I was like the older brother in Big Valley, and he was the younger when I was chasing him, and he slipped on this rug and he fell and hit the corner of my parents' bed right here. And his eye, so I'm babysitting him, and oh my gosh, my parents are going to come home, and he had this black eye.
Oh,
so I put ice on it. I was trying to do all this stuff. Finally, I called my mother and I told her because I knew she would come home and be aghast. And I think about these things. My little brother was like, "Oh, I think you were trying to kill me." I'm like, "No, I wasn't. I really wasn't." But again, he was like, "You were in charge, and you had me running around, and playing cops and robbers or whatever we were playing." And I'm just like, yeah, that just kind of was innately in me.
Yeah.
To be that person. At school, I was, that person. I ran a couple of, people's campaigns for student government. Like, I never wanted to be that person, but
That's funny.
to do their signs and their posters and all that was like my thing.
That's funny. She also kind of did that too.
I know, I did.
It was childhood was just all prep. It's all prep.
All prep. But a great childhood. I went to parochial schools. I'm from Columbus. I went to Catholic school here. Great schools, great upbringing, lived in a great neighborhood where you could just be kids all the time. I felt like I was always a kid, I just really was into my childhood, and I have these fond memories. My mother was born and partially raised in Atlantic City, and my grandmother was from there. And so we would go to Atlantic City every summer and stay there and just be beach kids. Like,
awesome.
Beach kids. Like, we live for just going to the beach and crabbing, being able to fish and get your own crabs, bring them home. And
that sounds actually blissful.
It was before gambling hit Atlantic City. I tell everyone, like, not the same same place. Yeah.
Exactly. That is so incredibly cool. And you said that, and again, this is all just making perfect sense as we're pulling the thread from your childhood all the way to where you are today, which is doing this executive search, because that's a lot of connections you've made and a lot of businesses you've seen, fail and win. And you've had a lot of opportunity to reach back and help people up the ladder as you've worked your way up too. So you might get a job that says, you know what, this person, it'd be a promotion for this person, but I really think they can handle it, sort of thing. And a little bit of convincing them that they could do the job, much like someone had to do that for you, your husband had to do for you.
That's right.
So it's great to always have people like that. And you being so well known here too, I love that you basically just hopped right in and just helped with the growth of the city that you grew up in and loved, so it is really, really lovely. So now when you unplug, because your job is a little bit different, because it doesn't go well into the evening, or maybe it does. Usually it's not like, we got to get something done for the morning sort of thing. What do you do to unplug? Is it still very much involved with the arts and activities around Columbus, or is there something that you do that is just, like, is it reading? Is it do you journal? Is it, just, living your best life? I guess right now you've done so much.
It's a little bit of, well, there are a few things. So I do have, some favorite television shows that I like to watch, and I won't give, I'm like, this is
That's
a
okay.
little relaxation for me.
I love it.
I still love, yes, the arts. So, I'm always looking for kind of what's happening in the arts, and, where can I go check out this thing or that thing, the
Mm-hmm.
museum. I live near the museum, so it's easy for me to walk over and just
Oh,
check
yes.
something out. And which I, really enjoy. In the summer, it's any kind of outdoor music concert. I really enjoy that. And then, Catherine, I was never a runner, but I am a bit of a fitness, enthusiast. I'd like to get my exercise and keep moving. And so in the nice weather months, I'm a part of the German Village Walking Club,
Oh,
and we
yeah.
walk. So every Saturday we meet at the Schiller statue in Schiller Park, and we walk 3 or 5 miles, depending on what you're up for.
Fantastic.
On Sundays, usually I go for maybe a little longer walk. There's a girlfriend that is in Columbus part time, and when she's here, I walk with her, and I find maybe someone else to walk with. This year, because I had, last year I had a hip replacement. I told myself after my healing that I was going to walk, try to do 2 races a month.
Mm-hmm.
So I go do 5Ks or 10Ks, and I walk in them. I don't run, but I fast walk. So, I'm
Mm-hmm.
really working on my time and all these kinds
Yeah.
of things. So like this Saturday I have the Coleman race, and next Saturday I have a pet rescue race. So I'll do those. And just spending time with friends. Like, I have great friends, and, whether they're here, my former German village neighbors. I used to be, a German villager, and we were a close knit community. Or my friends that live out of town, and spending time with them and doing some long weekends. That is really important to me. My friendships are, rich, and I value them, and I value time with people. And it's just like, good food, and maybe some good wine, or a good cup of coffee, and just
Mm-hmm.
spending time. And then, spending time, obviously my husband is a walker too, but he walks really fast. And when you see us walking together, I'm usually behind him. But we are movie enthusiasts. We like museums, and we like, forms of art. So we're always like figuring out those kinds of things to do and spend, time together. What I also enjoy in the winter, which is new since leaving YWCA, we go to Phoenix in the winter. We spend we're doing a kind of a minimum of 3 weeks. We bumped it up a little bit this year. We'll probably bump it up a little bit more next year, because we can work from there.
Right.
And we hike.
You guys are
We
just
like to hike.
always on the move.
Yep. Gotta
Hiking in
stay on the
Phoenix.
move.
Yeah, the hiking in Phoenix and just Arizona in general is just so
Oh,
wonderful. It's so different from here too. I mean, I don't want to discredit just because our, fauna, our foliage is different, but it's nice to even get a change up in that regard too, where the scenery is so completely different and beautiful, and things like that. So
the mountains for me they're sacred. The energy I get from them, the
same.
beauty. Um, it's like, just, I get there and I exhale. There is something about that. Now, I don't want to be there when it's 100 degrees. I know
Right.
that. I don't care. I'm like,
No,
people are like, it's a dry heat. I'm like, it's
no,
100,
it's still hot.
right? It's
Yeah.
still hot. It's an oven.
I'm just in a hot oven now.
But in January and February and even in March, we stayed almost to the end of March. I love it. I really do. So that's kind of that is where I really go to recharge, especially after, being in business, you get through your year and, you kind of want to take inventory of, well, how did last year go? You're planning, for this year, or you're into this year. Maybe, gets a slower start in January, February. It's a great way to recharge.
Cool. I might have to start following your lead on that just to remove myself from my desk seat and we'll put it somewhere else, essentially,
Yes.
just for a change
Yes.
of view.
And then last thing I will say, because anybody that knows me knows this, is listening or knows me, I'm a Cleveland Browns fan all the way. We are season ticket holders. And so in the fall, every home game, like I'm on the road to Cleveland, going to watch my team, and I shut off the phone. I'm like, I love my team. I love cheering. I mean, football is probably, it's starting to become, I'm starting to think about CTE and some of those things. And I don't know, sometimes I'm like, I have to put that out of my head because there is, some barbaric nature
Right,
to it. And
right,
it's,
right.
not great for people's health, I think, long term. But the camaraderie, we've been sitting with the same people for nearly 20 years.
Oh
The
my goodness.
camaraderie, I enjoy Cleveland, cheering and such. And it's the drive. Like I always tell people, like, that's 2 hours up and 2 hours back, so to speak,
Right.
with my husband and us in the car, just having time with one another.
Yeah, I think that's great too. We've been experiencing a few car trips ourselves, and we're like, this is kind of nice. No
It
distraction.
is.
We're just
Yep.
traveling with each other for a while.
Right. We're not in an airport. We're not, dealing
Exactly.
with
There's,
all the
you
things.
can choose the music. It's wonderful.
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
Christie, thank you so much for doing this. This was so great. And I feel like in a way we've also caught up just kind of personally too, because we
I do
keep talking about
too.
doing it. um,
Yes.
but thank you for sharing your story with the guests that are the people that the listeners and I guess also former guests too. But yeah, your story is fantastic. And like, again, you've done such amazing things. You are greatly admired in this town and probably well beyond that. So I really appreciate your time and I thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure. And it's good to get caught up, but we need to do it in person.
Absolutely. Absolutely.